Greetings, everybody. It's me, Robert Phoenix, and we are back here for another edition of the Astro Weather, live from my holiday camp along the banks of the Mississippi River. It's a beautiful morning here. Oh, speaking of beautiful morning, look who's here. Little Miss Sunshine herself. Here she is. Yes, the new mascot of Astro Weather, Miss Peachy. Yeah, yeah. How do you not have a good day now? There you go. Here's your little dose of peachy to get you going. Now don't scratch my leg because I know that's what you're going to do. How was everybody? Did we get the requisite amount of sleep last night, wherever you are in this great wild world? Um, how was your day yesterday? Oh, by the way, shout out to Kelly B's son. Happy solar return, young fellow. Here's to many more. And whatever you do, don't let them draft you. Remember that, Mom. No conscription for American boys and girls. And they'll try to slip in the migrant army. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. So we are just a few days away from Taurus season. And man, we are rapidly moving through the Gregorian year, aren't we? We're just 4 days now away from the bull, the season of the bull, and really dovetailing with that Jupiter Uranus conjunction in the same sign, which is nearly upon us. We'll get into some of that today, as well as the placement of the moon. And the moon is in Leo. We talked about this yesterday. There we go. And here is our starry navigation points. So this is the T square that we've got cooking today, which is the moon in Leo opposing Pluto, and then the sun moving into that square with Pluto by a degree. And Pluto's at the second degree of Aquarius. In terms of Pluto time, that's quite an advance, right? Because Pluto will span 30 degrees in about 14 years. So we're already 2 degrees in. And we'll go through retrograde here shortly, which will take us back to 29 at the election. So we're going to Pluto retrograde. I think Pluto, if I'm not mistaken, goes direct. Pluto's direct during the election at 29 Capricorn. The last outpost. Jupiter's retrograde in Gemini during that time. And it's right on Trump's sun, which makes it a very complex election process in general. It'll be complex anyway, but Jupiter on Trump's sun retrograde makes it doubly more complex. So we talked a little bit about the Cancer moon yesterday, and we've talked a bit about the Leo moon before, and I think it's probably good to revisit it in light of this T square. So the Leo moon can be warm and generous and gregarious and kind of larger than life. People who tend to wear their emotions on their sleeves. Now, keep in mind, and it doesn't really work this way with astrology, which is kind of interesting. But we know that the sun is in rulership in Leo, right? And you would think that the moon in Leo would be afflicted because it'd be in the opposite sign of the sun. But in astrological parlance, it's not. It's not afflicted. So it's not in detriment and it's not in fault. Which is, again, it's weird, right? Because it's in this oppositional place. So, given that, I think that the moon in Leo has tremendous power. And it's one of those moons where if you have a Leo, and I don't run across a lot of people with Leo moons, it's kind of interesting. Maybe they're just so self possessed and have such a great kind of understanding of who they are that they don't need to have readings. I don't know. Could be the case, but it's one of those moons where the highest form of expression should be generous and loving and unafraid to share emotional content, right? But it's not emotional content in the sense that it's weepy or dark or gloomy or depressed. It's more a kind of an ebullience, right? Like I think the Leo moon at times can be almost painfully over optimistic in its expression, and it's in some ways it's better to be that way. But we all have friends who like whatever is going on in life, they have at least one friend where it doesn't affect them. Everything is half full, right? The glass is always half full, and look on the bright side of things. To me, that's the Leo moon. It is exuberant. It is optimistic. Of course, it loves things like children and pets and sort of the creatures and the features of childhood in a lot of ways. And you'll find people who have Leo moons in some ways to be very childlike, not in a bad way, but in a way where everything is kind of new. It's like a new experience. Like going out for ice cream is has the same value and import as going out for ice cream when you were like 6 years old. That's how people with the Leo moon roll. The downside with the Leo moon is if the individual is rejected and everyone around them, says, "Well, you're too sunny, you're too bright, you're too positive, you're too optimistic," or can you just leave some space in the room for other people? And that's really painful for people with the Leo moon to hear, right? Because all they want to do is really be loved. And sometimes it can go over the top. Sometimes it can be a bit dictatorial, like the decree of the royal eye, like I know what's best for you. Like you'll get that with the Leo moon. But by and large, I think it's a positive, generous, gregarious, loving. I wouldn't say it's unconditional because Leo always wants to be loved back. Boom, right? So that's the basis and the foundation of the moon, and we're in a quarter cycle with the moon. Like that's where the phase is. We're in a quarter phase, and quarter moons are really interesting because whatever you started on the new moon, which of course was right after the eclipse, that this is an adjustment and building cycle, right? Like you can ask yourself, and we went into the new moon phase. What was it on Tuesday? Tuesday, the day after the eclipse. Um, is my heart into it? Am I into this thing? Especially if you started something during that time. Is my heart into it? And that's really the sort of the key for today's weather is your heart into it? Because if your heart is not into it, you're going to get tested, right? You're going to get tested in terms of your fortitude, which is going to be the sun, and your resources, which is Pluto. So today is one of those days where you have to commit these, fixed sign, cardinal sign at the end of the cardinal phase. So you kind of have to make a stand today in a lot of ways. I do like the fact that the sun is not in this cardinal phase. It will be in 3 days. I'm sorry, fixed phase in 3 days. So we'll have a Sun Pluto square, which we'll have another discussion about. But that's a much more intense square. And once we move into Taurus territory, we're moving into the anniversary of the nation state of Israel, which was formed under the sign of Taurus. So we'll talk more about that as that gets closer. Uh, and here we are in the final degrees of Aries, and we know that Aries is a pioneering energy. It keeps going. It keeps moving forward. Aries does not retreat. even though we do have Mercury retrograde in Aries, it is not a sign known for retreat. So today, as you're tested on the things that you feel intensely and passionately about, just remember there's no going back. So I think the best case scenario here is you double down with your effort. This is not a day to just kind of cast things aside. So well, that was fun, or that was that was a good time, and I think it kind of worked out a little bit. No, you can't really do that today. Today you're trying to push this thing across the finish line. You may not push the project across the finish line. They may have a ways to go, but you may push your commitment across the finish line. Say, that's it. I'm in. I'm doing this. I'm not looking back. And I think we need that. I think we need it. The only mutable planet. Well, we have Saturn in Pisces, and Pisces is mutable. Neptune in Pisces, and that's mutable. So we have some mutability in the air. We also have a lot of fixed energy as well. Pluto in Aquarius, of course, the aforementioned Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. A lot of people are kind of freaked out about this. I'm not that freaked out about it. And the reason I'm not that freaked out about it is because, there isn't any real dissonant angularity. So my sense here is that they're probably going to do something to relieve the economy a bit, whatever they can do. I don't know if it's lowering interest rates, or maybe Biden decides that he's going to forgive more student debt, which at the end of the day, what does it really do? It just pisses off the people that paid their debt and creates more enmity on one side and theoretically more allies on the other. Although that's, those are basically votes that are being bought indirectly. But I feel like the economic information, at least in the moment and superficially, is going to be positive. I don't think it's going to be negative. I don't see it. Right? I don't see it. If we have, let's say, Pluto coming in here and squaring Jupiter Uranus, which I think it's already done, then that would be a whole different discussion. But we don't have that, right? So I would look. We've all had errors in judgment. We've all been wrong at a certain point. I don't think that the Jupiter Uranus conjunction is a black swan event. I don't think so. Don't think so. Jupiter may have some other things in store for us once it moves into Gemini in June and begins the squaring process with Saturn. That's a different discussion altogether. And then by the end of its transit, when it is in square with Neptune, that's a whole different discussion as well. But I don't think that the bottom is going to drop out of the market. I don't think we're going to have a black swan event. And I do think that this is still a good time to invest. I think that there are investment opportunities that are available for people. And usually when you have Saturn involved, right, it's going to be conservative. Now, I'm not going to tell you to go invest in drug companies because I don't believe in it. But if you want to look at where the big gains are going to be, they're going to be in drug companies. And particularly because they're always promoting some sort of a new disease or new disorder or new contagion, right? So I would expect drug company stocks to go way up, way up through the roof. It's interesting because Klaus Schwab is sick. Apparently, he's on his deathbed, if you can believe that shit. And Schwab is he's an Aries. He's an Aries, and I'm wondering how much of this eclipse affected old Schwabi. It might have. We'd have to look at his chart, but he's heavy on the Aries side, and so he's apparently in jeopardy. And what happens with the World Economic Forum without Klaus Schwab? And I'm sure it lives on, but this is the guy that was the founder of it. He is the pater familias of the World Economic Forum. So maybe his um, strange little adopted son, Yuval Noah Harari, will take the reins of the World Economic Forum. I don't know if you caught his act the other day, but he basically said that there's an event coming and not everybody is going to survive it, but the elites will. We'll have an arc and we'll wind up losing most of the useless eaters on the planet. And it's interesting that his middle name is Noah because he believes in this whole arc thing. So, yeah, today is one of those days, like, commit to finish, don't give up. And that's one of the things that we can do with that Leo moon. And what's interesting too is because of the degree, we've got this interesting trine with Neptune going on, and we also have a trine with Venus. And I think exuberance and optimism and passion are the key words for today. Get people excited about your ideas. Get people excited about what you're doing. And I've seen people that are enthusiastic. Uh, I've seen them move mountains, right? They're able to get people to do things that they normally don't think they could do, or don't believe they're capable of doing. So it's a wonderful thing to watch very enthusiastic people get people fired up and get them to move sort of beyond their limitations. And today is one of those days. So, this is where we have a T square that I don't think is a terrible T square. It's one of these T squares where it's like a test. And if you engage with the test and allow your innate passion and energy to drive your projects across the finish line, you will meet the test. The moon Pluto opposition will often bring up feelings of abandonment. Like, if I do this, I'll stand out. And if I stand out, then I'll be alone. I won't be a face in the crowd. I won't just blend in. And then maybe people will judge me, or maybe my friends will abandon me, or maybe my family will tap out on me. Right? That's that Moon Pluto opposition. And so this is kind of an interesting moment, like a reality check with a little bit of fear in it. But there are too many positive attributes with everything else that should support you in your quest and your goals. Like, we often talk about, like we're living in the end times, or a time of reckoning, and I do believe there's a lot of truth to that. Not the end times in crazy Christian sense, but different. At the same time, you're still a human. You still have ideas. You still have projects. You still have dreams. You still have goals. You still have visions. When you take those away, then what are you? This is not to say that our four-legged friends are lesser than us, but they don't have those things. They run off of their biological and instinctual drives to uh, eat and mate and procreate and nurture and keep the cycle of their pack or their herd or whatever going, right? They don't sit there and say, I've got a I've got a great idea for a whitetail retreat, right? And God bless them because they're not complicated in that way. But as humans, we're kind of cursed to have dreams and have goals and have visions. That's what makes us human, right? It makes us it gives us the ability to stretch and reach and to go beyond our perceived capabilities. You take that away from us, then just who are we? We're nothing. And again, not to dismiss our friends in the animal kingdom, but this in some ways separates us out from them in that regard. So this is one of those days where it's kind of like a reality check. I talked a little bit about it yesterday, but who are you? What are you doing? And are you going to allow this dominant paradigm or whatever this thing is determine your hopes and dreams and goals and visions? And if you've already started down that path, then how can you retreat from it at this point? There's no turning back now. And you say, the world is going to hell in a handbasket. Let me just circle the wagons here and make sure I'm all prepped up. We have to have something to dream for, to live for, some kind of vision that we reach towards. When we have that, that's when it engages the best of us. Today is one of those days. All right, let's get into our True Hemp Science star of the day. Bring up the banner here. You know what that means? That's right. You spend $100 at truehempscience.com. And what do you get? Maybe we should do a little True Hemp Science visual today. We'll do that before we do the star of the day. Let's see. Here we go. That's it. Let's get this up there, and we'll actually take you into the website today. How about that? So let's do that. We'll do a little website share for our good friend Chris. And there you go. It takes you into the ASMR version of True Hemp Science. And this is just to give you an idea of all the products that are available there. Now, this is his big trinity. This is his new, these are his new, and I keep wanting him, maybe this Friday he'll come on the show. We have the N88 Nocturna, we have the Solara, and we have the Reviva. So these are all new blends that Chris has come up with. And they're really, really good. And I'd love for him to come on and talk more about it. You can get the whole bundle here. So they're nano water solubles and they're 25% off. So there's no alcohol in any of these. But you can see that there's all kinds of products. You got the CBD gummies, which are great. You have the moon dust powder, which is great. The moon dust gummies. Now, all these gummies are fantastic. Really fantastic. I can't recommend them enough. He's got some PAS, which alkalizes your body, helps you with your skin. We got a full spectrum of hemp extract right there. That's cherry and watermelon. He has some other stuff here. This is a salve that you can use externally. Here we go. There's a more external CBD lotion. There's all kinds of really great products here. And all you got to do is type in 15MINS, 15MINS. And what you'll do is you get a free goodie bag with your order. $150 or more gets you free shipping. There's always a 30-day money back guarantee. And if you go to that website, you can make an appointment with Chris, and he'll be able to tell you everything you need to know about his products. All right, let's get into our star of the day. Brought to you by True Hemp Science. Today's star of the day is none other than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Now, one of the people I was thinking of was Ian Mackay of Fugazi and the Discord label. And the reason I chose Kareem is because I feel like we get a better sense of how his chart is played out. Not to say that we couldn't do something with Ian Mackay, but it would be more, I would say speculative, but it would be more about what we don't know of Ian Mackay versus we do know about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So that said, let's get into it. One of the things that Kareem was known for in his career is longevity. So we have Saturn right on the midheaven, right there. And Kareem played for 20 years. 20 years in the National Basketball Association. And he was, in many ways, a very polarizing figure. And you'll get that with people that have Pluto in the 10th house. And you'll also, if they are aspected in this regard, they will transform their chosen line of work. And clearly he did. You know, Kareem transformed the game of basketball. There was nobody who had, at his height, that could do the things that he would eventually wind up doing. You know, of course, he had the jump hook, the sky hook, which was unblockable. But Kareem could also pass, and he could dribble. You know, he was a prototype, kind of modern NBA player in that regard. So with Pluto here, he changed the game, right? And he's considered to be one of the top 3 basketball players of all time. Personally, I think he's kind of a jerk, but you cannot deny greatness, right? It's the truth of the matter. Now, what's interesting about Kareem is he switched religions and he switched names. So if we go over here, we have the true node in Gemini, and he was born Lou Alcindor, and when he grew up, they called him Louis on the courts of the Rucker playground. He made a name for himself in Rucker, which is a basketball park in Harlem. So with the true node in Gemini, of course, you have 2 names. You have Lou Alcindor and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And what's interesting is that he became a Muslim, right? So that's that South Node in Sagittarius, which is very religious and kind of very past lifey, right? He's like, yeah, man, I'm going to tap into that South Node, and I'm going to beat Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I just wonder how maybe it was unavoidable that he would have basically 2 names, right, with the true node in Gemini. But I wonder how his life would have gone if he had not become a Muslim. I'm not even sure if he's a practicing Muslim anymore. I don't know what his religious status is. But had he remained Lou Alcindor, would he have been as successful? Because you have that Jupiter conjuncting that South Node. It's like there's, that's money, that's resources. So I don't know. Maybe he got tax breaks. I don't know. Or maybe what would have happened if he basically become Lou Alcindor again? Said, yeah, I'm kind of over the money. You ever notice that? Like the guys who go from having their Christian names to Muslim names rarely go back to their Christian name again. It's very interesting. Sun in the 7th house, and it's square Saturn, and Kareem did. I think if you were to look historically at his relationships, he did not do well. First of all, he's 7'1", so not that you can't find a mate at 7'1". Maybe you find a 6-foot woman, so you're dealing with a 12-inch difference, which is manageable, I think. And again, size should not necessarily be a determinant whether or not you have a decent relationship. But he never really seemed to have much traction in relationships, and historically, his marriages did not go well. Right. He also challenges authority, and one of the things that he did, he's got Neptune in the 12th, which I think is a nice placement for Neptune. But he was one of these guys that came out in favor of the the jibber jab, the carjack, and I think he was one of those people that became adamant. Like he really went after Kyrie Irving for choosing not to get the jab. And I just wonder if it's this Neptune, Mercury opposition, and even the Mars opposition. Like I just feel like he wasn't alone. There were a lot of people. They were being tapped on the shoulder, saying, "You got to go tell these people to do this, right?" And I think he suffered a credibility hit when he went out and did that. And what's and there's a lot of Kyrie and Kareem. They're both Aries, and they're both going to do whatever the fuck they want, right? Um, they're gonna do what they want, and I'm puzzled as to why Kareem, didn't understand this. I think it's just probably the fact that he's on a payroll, and if you're on a payroll, you have to basically toe the party line. His greatness is in his chart astrologically for his basketball abilities. Let's not beat around the bush here. He's got a grand trine, and he has Mars in Aries and Mercury in Aries, trining Saturn, trining Pluto, trining Jupiter. Right, he's got a Mars Jupiter. I mean, this is the grand trine of somebody who is athletically gifted. Bottom line, right? Fire. Well, here Scorpio would be the water component, but by degree, it's in the grand trine. Kareem's had some issues with drugs over the years, and I wouldn't say hard drugs, but he was arrested at the Canadian border one time for weed. I think he had a couple of weed busts. So you get that Chiron in Scorpio. And I think with Chiron in the first house, it is also a challenge for the individual to accept themselves, right? I mean, let's face it, the guy's 7'1". And they're generally what happens with really tall people is that they either get into it and they celebrate it like Shaq. You can tell Shaq loves being a big motherfucker. He loves it. He's into it. Wilt Chamberlain loved being a big motherfucker. I'm not sure Kareem reveled in the fact that he was 7'1". You know what I mean? He never felt like there was. I mean, like you look at Wilt, who's a Leo, and he's like happy, jolly, fun. Wilt was fun. Shaq, whatever you think of Shaq, he's a Pisces. He's like a big fucking kid. So these are guys that are just, hey, look, I'm big, and I'm into it. Bill Russell was somewhere in between, I think. I think Bill and Kareem had more in common than Kareem and Wilt, because Bill was taciturn. Bill had a hard time being a black athlete um, in Boston, and I think Kareem sort of personalized a lot of that struggle. The other thing with Kareem is that he's lost a lot of money over the years. He's had money ripped off from him. His house burned down to the ground, right? So this moon in Pisces, right here, moon in Pisces, squaring Jupiter. He's lost money. People have stolen money from him, accountants, it's what happens when you have money. People are always trying to get into it. Um, I think part of one of the reasons why Kareem had a hard time, sort of, I wouldn't say accepting his height. I mean, look, clearly he fit the shoes of a great NBA player, but there's a sensitivity about Kareem, right? Which is hidden behind all this Aries, and it's Venus and it's Pallas and it's the moon in Pisces, and that Jupiter moon square I think makes him even more sensitive in a lot of ways. So I think that there was always this sense of um, sensitivity, and maybe environmental sensitivity or just sensitivity in general, behind this Aries wall. And perhaps he wasn't always as comfortable in his own skin as a result of this. And again, if you look at his relationships, they're rocky. He doesn't have anything really long term in his life. So you have that Venus Uranus square in terms of relationships. They don't always, they start under unusual circumstances and conditions, and then they end under unusual circumstances and conditions. So if we're looking at this chart and kind of encapsulating it, it is the chart of a great athlete, somebody with prodigious skills manifesting in this grand trine. He transforms the center position in basketball. He has a 20-year career and is lauded as one of the great basketball players of all time. You cannot have a discussion about the greats of basketball without mentioning Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Where do you put him? Is he one and Jordan two, Jordan one, Kareem two? I'd probably put Jabbar at one. And again, I'm not a huge fan of the guy, but he revolutionized the center position. And there were good centers prior to Jabbar. You had George Mikan, who was a whole nother level of being an NBA center. Prior to Jabbar coming into the league, you had Nate Thurman. Of course, you had Wilt Chamberlain, and and Bill Russell. I mean, those guys were great centers, but neither of them could do what Kareem could do. And Kareem could beat you at all facets of the game. Bill Russell couldn't score. He could not score. He was lucky if he would get 10 points a night. He might get 15 rebounds. He might have about 5 or 6 blocks, and some of the blocks would go flying into the stands. But he couldn't pass. He couldn't dribble and get out on the break. Wilt had better scoring skills than Russell, but Kareem had, again, just a better all-around game. And right out of the box, he goes to the Milwaukee Bucks, and they win. I think season 2 they win a championship, and then he wins more with the Lakers. So you can see the greatness in his chart as a player. I think on a personal level, the guy struggled. He struggled in relationships, and I think he has struggled with a high degree of sensitivity. So at the end of the day, would you take that as a trade-off? Would you want to have the prodigious skills and size and talent and have that be your calling card? And then perhaps suffer in the realm of personal relationships, being understood? Or would you rather have great personal relations, be understood, and don't stand out from the crowd? That your life would be successful, but not to the extent that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's was, in terms of the Plutonian effect. It's kind of like Kareem. I would use the analogy of Kareem kind of being like in some ways, the Steve Jobs of basketball. Some people would say that'd be like Dr. J. I think it's Kareem, because he just. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is all about like processing power, which Apples are really not known for. But Kareem was able to have immense processing power and to do things in ways that were just completely other humans just did not do it. Like he was that rare in terms of vision, agility, strength, all that stuff. So would you take that and struggle in your personal life, or would you rather have a rich and resonant personal life and then sacrifice? He's also not very liked. That's the other thing about Kareem. People don't really like Kareem. People sit down and tell you, "Oh yeah, he's great. He's one of the greatest guys." You won't hear that. You will not hear that about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You'll hear just what I'm saying today: respect for his game and all the other things. But likable, no. Wilt was likable, very likable. Shaq is likable. Russell, not likable. He's more like Russell in a lot of ways, but he's like Bill Russell squared. All right, there's your True Hemp Science star of the day, the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. We have a link over there in the show notes. Oh, look at that. We're frozen. We have a link in the show notes, and that is for 15 minutes. Come on over there. We're going to be talking to OJ. We're getting into OJ world. And we'll look at the long tail effect of OJ Simpson in our lives. So if you would like to, please hit the like button, subscribe, share this with your friends. And there's a little cup of coffee button down there at the bottom. And if you feel like you want to buy me a cup of coffee, feel free to do that. In the meantime, we'll see you over on the 15-minute side. Thanks, Chataria. You're the best. Have great days and great nights if it is nighttime or evening where you are. Blessings to each and every one of you. And bye for now.